Yo, it's your boy, the insurance junkie, your fiduciary fella, the all-star advisor Alonzo Hall, and I've returned today with another ADH wealth solution. Today, we'll begin to discuss fulfilling all of your financial needs. To contribute to channel growth, the links are in the description. To schedule an appointment of your own, or to purchase life insurance directly up to $1 million with no medical exam and an instant decision, my information is in the description. Lastly, make sure you hit that like, drop a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content. And as always, share. And now, here's our next feature. Yo, it's your boy, the insurance junkie, your fiduciary fella, the all-star advisor, Alonzo Hall, and I've returned today to whap and tap on your head with another ADH wealth solution. Before we go in, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you hit that like, drop a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content. And as always, share. Lastly, to contribute to channel growth, to purchase life insurance directly up to $1 million with an instant decision and no medical exam, or to schedule a one-on-one appointment with a licensed financial professional, the links are in the description. As we proceed to give you what you need, today we're looking at an article from the Financial Samurai about a SLAT, or a spousal lifetime access trust, for obviously estate planning purposes. So, if you love your spouse and want to make them financially independent, one way to do so is to create a SLAT, or a spousal lifetime access trust. Remember, I told you guys about a client I had in the Bronx who was 20 years older than his wife, and he purchased a $250,000 life insurance policy to make sure that when he died, he left her $25,000 a year for 10 years. It's similar, but a little deeper than that. So a SLAT is an irrevocable trust where one spouse makes a gift into a trust to benefit the other spouse and potentially other family members while removing the assets from their combined estates. Because a SLAT is funded with a gift made during the spouse's lifetime, any post-gift appreciation will take place in the trust and be excluded from the estate of both spouses for federal estate taxation purposes. The sooner you create a SLAT and transfer assets, the higher the chance a greater percentage of wealth will be excluded from federal estate taxes. After all, over the long run, stocks, real estate, and other assets do tend to go up. Why create a SLAT? In 2022, the estate tax threshold is $12.6 million per person, or $24.2 million per married couple. If you die with an estate worth more than these thresholds, you'll have to pay a 40% death tax. Therefore, the main reason to create a SLAT is to potentially save on estate taxes. Deciding whether...
decades.
What the heck?
Most bladder leak pads were...
Therefore, the main reason to create a SLAT is to potentially save on estate taxes. Deciding where to give your money is more efficient than giving it back to the government. The government is also often a black hole that wastes a lot of money on things you might not care about. The other reason for creating a SLAT is to take care of your spouse financially, no matter what happens to you. If you die prematurely or get a divorce, a SLAT is irrevocable. The non-donor spouse who receives the SLAT can do whatever they want with the transferred assets. Generally, the gift to the SLAT is not taxable because the donor spouse uses their federal gift and estate tax exclusion when transferring assets to the SLAT. Wealthier households would generally be given a heads up before they hit that threshold. How the donor spouse can benefit from a SLAT. The donor transfers of assets to the SLAT is considered a taxable gift. However, the gift may not be owed if the donor utilizes their federal gift and estate tax exclusion. In other words, the transfer of assets is under $12.6 million threshold per household per person in 2022, there's no estate tax owed. If structured properly, the assets and any future appreciation is removed from the donor's taxable estate, even though the non-donor's spouse is a beneficiary of the SLAT. SLATs are typically structured as grantor trusts for income tax purposes. This means the donor pays the income tax liability personally on the earnings rather than the trust itself bearing such burden of the income taxes. Strategically, it's wise to fund a SLAT before the estate tax threshold is lowered. For example, President Biden has openly said he wants to lower the estate tax threshold to $5 million or lower. Funding a SLAT when your estate's value is higher, the estate tax threshold is suboptimal. However, the SLAT recipient still gets the benefit if assets continue to appreciate over time. Further, a SLAT may also be designed to benefit the next generation only or be structured as a dynasty trust. A dynasty trust is a long-term trust created to pass wealth from generation to generation without incurring any transfer taxes. Such taxes include the estate and gift taxes or generation skipping transfer tax. Negatives of a SLAT. Although creating a SLAT is a positive if you love your spouse and want to potentially lower your estate tax bill, there are some negatives. 1. Non-donor spouse dies or leaves the donor in a divorce. If the non-donor spouse dies, the donor spouse no longer has direct access to the trust's assets. Instead, the trust may either terminate or be distributed to continue for the benefit of the donor's children and other family members. But if the donor's children and other family aren't in good standing, this may pose a problem. Even in the event of divorce, a disadvantage of a SLAT is that the separated non-donor spouse will continue to benefit from the trust as a beneficiary. This may not be ideal if the non-donor spouse did something terrible to cause the divorce, like cheating. Therefore, when setting up a SLAT, you may want to put in a provision that states the SLAT is terminated in the case of a divorce or death. 2. The cost to set up the SLAT. It'll likely cost at least $3,000 per spouse to set up a SLAT. Then it takes time to contact an estate planning attorney, talk to the attorney, sign the documents, file the SLAT documents in your death file, and so forth. The more complicated your net worth, the more it will cost to set up the SLAT. Because SLATs are typically structured as grantor trusts, they do not require the filing of a tax return each year while the donor spouse is living. However, if the SLAT is not structured as a grantor trust, a separate income tax return will be required. The transfer of property to the SLAT will cause the need to report the transfer on gift tax return in the year of the gift. 3. You lose access to your funds. Because the SLAT is irrevocable, once you transfer assets into the non-donor spouse's SLAT, you cannot retrieve them. You're essentially giving up control and rights to all assets transferred. If your non-donor spouse ends up cheating on you with your best friend, you will feel mighty pissed off and betrayed. As a result, only transfer assets in a SLAT that you are fine to lose 100% of. It's the same way with angel investing or investing in some highly speculative investment like crypto. Write off those transferred assets from your mind. More things to know about a SLAT. The reciprocal trust doctrine. In order to fully utilize both exclusions, each spouse must create a SLAT for the benefit of the other. However, careful planning must be done to avoid the reciprocal trust doctrine. This doctrine applies when the IRS interprets the two trusts as constructively similar or interrelated. If the trusts violate the reciprocal trust doctrine, then the trusts may be undone. If so, you will have wasted your time and money setting up a SLAT. Ways to avoid that. Here are some ways not to violate the reciprocal trust doctrine. Creating and funding trusts at different times, including different classes of beneficiaries, providing different terms for distributions to beneficiaries, giving beneficiaries different rights of withdrawal, finally granting beneficiaries the power to change beneficiaries under certain restrictions. Given the complexity and risks, consulting an estate planning attorney is highly recommended. Ability for non-donor spouse to serve as a trustee. A beneficiary serving as a trustee with the ability to make broad distributions to themselves beyond the ascertainable standard of health, education, maintenance, or support could trigger the inclusion of the trust assets in the taxable estate of the non-donor spouse, potentially unwinding the intent of the strategy. In addition, distribution rights that are too broad may erode the creditor protection features that trust generally provides. 3. Trade-offs with respect to basis step-up at death. The transfer of assets to the SLAT is irrevocable and permanently removes the assets from the donor's taxable estate. Therefore, the assets in the SLAT will not obtain a step-up in cost basis upon the donor's death. However, this doesn't matter so much if your estate is already beyond the thresholds. 4. Only assets owned by the donor's spouse should be transferred. Make sure only assets owned by the donor's spouse are transferred. This way, the gift is not treated as made by both spouses. If the gift is made by both spouses, it would negate the benefits of a SLAT. Some assets only owned by a donor spouse may include a whole life insurance policy, a property only in the donor spouse's name, a fine wine collection, and valuable collectibles. If you live in a community property state, additional documents will be required. Reducing estate tax exposure. If you live in a state that has state estate tax, then funding a SLAT may help reduce state estate tax liability as well as federal estate tax liability. Should you set up a SLAT? If you love your spouse or have a great estate planning attorney, then setting up a SLAT makes sense. If you believe your estate will grow far beyond the estate tax threshold, setting up a SLAT and a GRAT also make a lot of sense. My main concern is that Congress will change the rules of the SLAT in the future. Right now, it almost seems too good to be true that appreciation of the transferred assets is not subject to estate taxes. Can you imagine Elon Musk transferring $10 million in Tesla stock to a spouse before the stock went up 10 times to $100 million? $87.94 million wouldn't be subject to an estate tax if the spouse were to die today. Further, roughly 50% of marriages end in divorce. Therefore, you can spend a lot of time and money setting up a SLAT, only to have it to nullify it later on. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. Make sure you hit that like, drop a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content. And as always, share, share, share. Lastly, to contribute to channel growth, to purchase life insurance directly up to $1 million with an instant decision and no medical exam, or to schedule a one-on-one appointment with a licensed financial professional. The links are in the description. With that being said, wipe ass. Work in progress every day and see success. Salute, salute, salute. Hey folks, this last video was sponsored by my company, where we help people like you to reach their financial goals. We do this through a simple conversation where we help to identify and then protect your lifestyle. And then we implement a plan. The process starts at about an hour. So, if you want more information or you want to schedule a consult, contact me via the information in the description box. And let's talk and see if we're actually a great fit for each other. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, when people challenge you, they don't challenge you to challenge you, but they challenge you to challenge you. Accept the challenge. Thank you, and enjoy life.